Good evening, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, reporting live from my little cabin in the woods called Murphy's Law, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. I have author Douglas Thomas joining us tonight for his book Knock Knock, which will be later down the road. But for now, we're going to kick off our film club night with some announcements. First of all, the film we're going to be watching is called, ironically, Happy New Year. It's the first film I watched of the Bollywood India film star, Shah Rukh Khan, I believe. But I thought it was appropriate because we're starting a new year and I want people to understand what Bollywood is. I just learned about it during COVID and I dove down that rabbit hole and I haven't come out. I'm just like Alice in Wonderland. I'm in Neverland right now with all the dancing and music and color. But the amazing thing about India cinema and all these foreign films that are watching is they are outstanding storytellers. And I want everybody to experience that. But before we begin with talking some more about the film, I'm going to begin with our January book club selections. And our first book of the year is one that I'm really proud of. This is my first book publishing with Lucid House Publishing. And this book is written by a father and son, Connor Judson Garrett and Kevin N. Garrett, who happen to be, Connor is the co-publisher with a.k.a. Garrett of Lucid House Publishing, and Kevin Garrett is a professional travel photographer who recently came by and took these amazing photos of me. I don't look that good, I swear, but this is an amazing family in the first place. And the fact that they called me during COVID and offered me the position of director of acquisitions to help them select the books was a dream come true. I wrote a big blog today, if you go on my website, www.thepulpwoodqueens.com, about what happens when your dreams come true. And all I've got to say is you've got to come up with bigger dreams. And ironically, the very first post I heard this morning was from Shah Rukh Khan, reporting in from where he lives in Mumbai, India. And he talked about dreams, big dreams, and how we keep needing, and he said, no matter what anybody tells you, keep believing in them. But when you have a dream come true, you have to replace it with another one. And so being the director of Lucid House Publishing and publishing books such as this is honestly so life-affirming and life-changing for me. It's given me, even at 64 years old, a drive to work even harder and longer. So as I share this book, I just want to read something in the very beginning that struck me. This has been blurbed by some pretty amazing people, but it begins with chapter 1. And this is a series. The next book will be coming out not too much later because this actually came out last December. But this is a series that is quite incredible. But it begins, The Raven, the Witch, and the Bullfrog. The wisest thing Gareth Greyfin's father Samuel did for his son was to throw him into the shallow of the sea and let the boy believe he was in the deep. Gareth thrashed and panicked until his feet touched the sandy bottom. The boy stood shivering, not with cold, but with sheer terror. With his head above the gently ebbing tide, fear drowns more men than water, his father told him. You can feel it, but don't let it choke you. I am telling you, that is such an auspicious beginning. That's an Indian phrase I've learned from all these films. That I know that once you start this magical, mystical tale, you will not want to put it down. It's a Southern tale of magic. And it is one that is for the whole family. It'd be a great read aloud. And I'm very proud of this book. And I am very excited about the possibilities of all the new books coming out. You're going to hear more from Connor and Kevin Garrett Tuesday night is now going to be the night for online book clubs at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. So please join us then. I'll be sending out a message on that. But this is our lead book for January, Spellbound Under the Spanish Moss. And I hope all of you will read it. Now, the one thing that I've done this year is I've read more books than probably any other time in my life because I've had all this time social distancing at home. And I'm not a person that likes to be alone. I'm a people person. So the only thing that could get me through this year was throwing myself into my work. So I've never done more writing, more reading, more film watching, more artwork than I've done this year. And I read, of the 600 and some books that were sent to me so far this year, and now they're already coming in for next year, of all those, I checked them all out, but I found 12 books that I picked for Book of the Month. Now, that's just not enough, folks, to help authors out there, is to pick 12 books. But as I fell down into the Bollywood rabbit hole, so to speak, and discovered all these fabulous films, not only just in India, but Pakistan and Egypt and Africa, I'm watching foreign films from everywhere. I realized that we've always read books that are global and diverse. In fact, that's exactly what we're looking for with Lucid House Publishing. So if you have a book that is an international story, whether you live in the United States or outside the United States, we're interested. Go to lucidhousepublishing.com and there's submission guidelines. But I decided that I would pick 12 books set somewhere else, and they're either written by authors that are from another country or authors set a book that live here in another country. Lots of combinations of those things. And because I fell in love with Shah Rukh Khan and all the Indian films, the only book that I could find out about him was King of Bollywood, Shah Rukh Khan and the Seductive World of Indian Cinema by Anupama Chopra. And I also found out she's a film critic. She's done many, many interviews with him on YouTube. And when I say he's a superstar, he has been in more films, like 80 films in his life, in his 25 years of being in films. He has probably received more awards and more doctorates from universities for his philanthropic ways and for all the good that he's putting out into the world. I wanted to read more about it. So I started reading this book. And it is so much more than even the story of Shah Rukh Khan. It's really a story that I never knew before. And that's what I look for. I look for the stories that I've never heard of before. I had never heard of this man until I watched the first Bollywood film. And now, honestly, I wrote in my blog today, all I can say to you is that when I watch his films, I'm happy because he goes for his dreams, and whatever role he takes on, he embraces it so fully. I am even in awe. I call him the Meryl Streep of film in India, but he's loved in lots and lots of foreign countries. And it's a definitive book on Bollywood, and it features this iconic star, but it features a lot more things. Now, I have also found out that Shah Rukh Khan is writing a book. He's been writing it for decades. And if I could ever get to him, I want that book. I want to read that book because I've heard him read excerpts of it. It's the most inspirational story I've ever heard. Shah Rukh Khan came from very humble beginnings. I mean, his father was one of the first freedom fighters. He was an attorney, but he was not very successful at it. His mother worked hard. They struggled, and what is amazing to me is that he lost both his parents at a very young age. And because of that, because he had the responsibility of, sisters and he decided that he would go into acting just because he liked it. Just like I started out because I liked to read books. I never knew I could make a living at it. But one of the things that got him into Hollywood was this little short story I'm going to read. It started out that Bollywood was at first a bribe. In the first grade, when he was 7, Shah Rukh routinely failed his Hindi language tests. Once Fatima promised him if he managed, this is his mother, to get a perfect score in the next test, she would take him to see a Hindi movie in a theater. Shah Rukh, whose preferred study styling was cramming the night before exams, studied till dawn and got full marks. Fatima took him and Shanaz to the Vivek Cinema Hall in Patel Nagar to see Joshila, which means zesty. Though the film was not particularly one of the best films, the waiting in line, the getting the treats before they went into the film, the lights go down, and if anybody who's ever seen a Bollywood film, it actually sometimes just takes my breath away. The colors, I can smell the sense of where they are. The incense is burning, the candles are burning. I'm absolutely so involved in the films that they last a lot longer than American films. Just when I think a movie is over, I find out that's just the first part. There's usually 3, and they actually take an intermission in between. And I know why, because you have to go to the bathroom. It's just amazing. But when I finish watching the film, I smile and I'm just so happy. So if you really want to get through some tough times, watch a Bollywood film, read our January International Book of the Month, and fall down the rabbit hole of Shah Rukh Khan films. He's got 15 coming up they've been holding on to since this year has started. So there's going to be a lot for us to watch. Next up, this year brought a lot of conflict in the country, whether it was the political arena that was going on to the Black Lives Matter. And I'm reading everything, trying to understand what's going on. And one of the books that that won the National Book Award was called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram K. Kendi. I decided to order it and read it. And I'm going to tell you, everything is summed up in these 2 definitions. Racist. One who is supporting a racist policy through their actions or inaction or expressing a racist idea. Anti-racist. One is supporting an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. You know, I grew up in an all-white community in a small town in Kansas, a very rural town, cattle and oil town, and I wasn't exposed to very many people from other cultures or people until we moved onto St. Nicholas Street in my hometown. And across the street from me was a dormitory for a college that was started there by a Philadelphia philanthropist, and it was called Midwest Institute. And the young men that came to this college were from all over the world. Mostly from back east, but they were from Venezuela and Japan and China and all different Middle Eastern countries. And they were young men who came to this 2-year business college to get their English up to par so they could get into the Ivy League colleges and then go back home so they could take their education. So having these young men across the street from me, we were exposed as children to people from another place. These were respectful, kind, just wonderful neighbors. And I can remember as little kids putting on our mother's formals and traipsing across the street to the dorm, and the house mother would answer the door, Mrs. Baker, and she'd say, "Girls, let me tell the boys you were here." And these college boys would come out and they'd ooh and ah over our dresses, and they were so sweet. It left a huge impression on me. They also drove some pretty fancy sports cars and they dressed to the nines, but I was always impressed. But the one thing that is hard to understand is the white privilege of growing up somewhere where you can go down the street, you can jog, and you never have to think about, being harassed or. And so I wanted to know more about it. And the one thing about How to Be an Anti-Racist that I loved is it's a conversation. And it really opened my eyes in a non-threatening, wonderful way of putting myself in somebody else's shoes. That's what we do when we read a book. We try to understand. And I have a lot of friends from a lot of different countries, and I ask them questions sometimes that drives them crazy. But I just want to know, what must it be like? And I love to embrace myself in other cultures. So read this book, educate yourself, be a better citizen, and understand that we have all got to learn how to get along better in this world, because we're all created by God and brought on this planet to be in community with one another. So read the book. Next up, I love Sue Monk Kidd. This is a bonus book club selection, and this actually was recommended to me by several book club members of the Pulpwood Queens, but one in particular, Sally Rathman, who's been my friend for back in my barren book days, she said, you really need to read this book. And Sally's a former, retired librarian. And so I thought I better read it. And it's a novel, but I want to just give you a little premise about this book. In her mesmerizing fourth work of fiction, Sue Monk Kidd takes an audacious approach to history and brings her acclaimed narrative gifts to imagine the story of a young woman named Anna. Raised in a wealthy family and ties to the ruler of Galilee, she is rebellious and ambitious with a brilliant mind and a daring spirit. She engages in furtive scholarly pursuits and writes narratives about neglected and silenced women. Anna is expected to marry an older widower, a prospect that horrifies her. An encounter with 18-year-old Jesus changes everything. Their marriage evolves with love and conflict, humor and pathos in Nazareth, where Anna makes a home with Jesus, his brothers, and their mother Mary. Anna's pinup longings intensify amid the turbulent resistance to Rome's occupation of Israel, partially led by her brother Judas. She is sustained by her fearless Aunt Yaltha, who harbors a compelling secret. When Anna commits a brazen act that puts her in peril, she flees to Alexandria, where startling revelations and greater dangers unfold. Anna determined her fate during a stunning convergence of events considered among the most impactful in human history. Well, if that doesn't get you alone, but I always read everything that an author puts in the book, their forewords, their dedications, their afterwords, but she put in two things. One is a poem. I am the first and the last. I am she who is honored and she who is mocked. I am the whore and the holy woman. I am the wife and the virgin. I am the mother and the daughter. I am she. Do not be afraid of my power. I am the knowledge of my name. I am the name of the sound and the sound of the name. This is from Thunder, a Perfect Mind. And last, knock upon yourself as on a door, and walk upon yourself as on a straight road. For if you walk on that road, you cannot get lost. And what you open for yourself will open. This is the Gospel of Thomas. Wonderful book. Could not put it down. I cannot say enough about it. Next, I watched an interview with Shah Rukh Khan, and I don't know if it was the TED Talk or a Think, or whether he spoke at one of the universities, Yale. But one of the questions asked of him was, what are you reading? And a lot of the books that he mentioned were a lot of books that most men say, thrillers. But one author he mentioned I'd never heard of. And he said he couldn't put the books down. And I am of the belief that if you really want to know what a person is like, look at their library. I study people's libraries. Some people go through medicine cabinets. I go through their libraries and see what they're reading. But he mentioned this author's name, and so I immediately ordered not one, but both of his books. His name is Yuval Noah Harari. He wrote 2 books, Sapiens, which is a brief history of humankind. It's a tome. And Homo Deus, a brief history of tomorrow. My life has forever been changed because I have taken more college courses. I think I graduated with 200 and some college courses when I finally graduated. I've taken anthropology, I've taken history, I've taken art history, I've taken a lot of things, but there were things covered in these books that I did not know. And what is wonderful, he puts it in a timeline that makes it so understandable. And so it's like the first time I went to the Natural History Museum in New York. I went in and they had a whole room just filled with raptors. Now I'd heard about raptors because everybody watches Jurassic Park, but there were a lot of raptors. And then they range from little bitty to really, really big. And I was kind of blown away. And that's the way his books are. Well, then over Christmas, I happened to go to a bookstore in Dallas, and they just came out with this book, Sapiens, which is The Birth of Humankind, which is an illustrated graphic novel of the same book. And because I'm a visual learner, I absolutely fell in love with this and how they did the timelines and the cartoons. This would be fascinating to have for a family read. But one of my favorite things that I loved, and it's right in the very beginning of the book that I was going through it, and I'm sorry, I keep having to put on my glasses. Where'd I put them? But I have to have the readers these days, y'all. But in this cartoon, you see a drawing, I'm going to show you, of a lot of different people from a lot of different cultures. There's a lot right there. And it says, one very important thing about ancient humans is they didn't all belong to the same species. I found out there were a lot of different humans in different species. But nowadays, it's important to note, people around the world may look different, they may speak different languages, but we're all exactly the same species. We're Homo sapiens. I can see families having amazing conversations about this book. And I'm going to tell you, kids will really enjoy it because there's a lot of humor in this book too. I found it fascinating. This author happens to have been, let me get it exactly right. He has his PhD, Yuval Noah Harari has his PhD in history from the University of Oxford and now lectures at the Department of History at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, specializing in world history. I have seen him interview from everybody from Natalie Portman to Bill Gates to Jeff Bezos. He's talking to visionaries everywhere. And if you get a chance, go on YouTube and watch the videos of this author. Fascinating. I apologize for how thick they are, but they're so entertaining. They're such page turners. I have to say, I enjoyed these books so much. Now, the last book I want to share with you, our bonus book club selection, is an author that I know you're all familiar with because she wrote The Orphan Train, Christina Baker Klein. She has a new novel called The Exiles. And this is an incredible story of a young girl seduced by her employer's son. Naive London governess Evangeline is arrested on a trumped-up charge when her pregnancy is discovered and is sent to the notorious Newgate prison. After months in the fetid, overcrowded jail, she learns she will be exiled to a land beyond the seas. Though uncertain of what awaits, Evangeline knows one thing. The child she carries will be born on the month-long voyage to this distant place. She goes to Australia. And this has always been fascinating. Australia's always been fascinating to me, and I've watched a lot of movies on it. But this is probably one of the most beautifully written, gorgeous stories of friendship among women, of grace, and will give you a better understanding what it's like in other parts of the world, no matter what time in history. Stories that tell stories that enlighten and educate and also entertain are what I'm looking for. This would actually, all of these could be made incredible films. And I am into films right now. So if anybody's listening to this, please look at our book club selections. They're all found on the Pulpwood Queens.com. And the book club selections are there. And I hope each month I will be showcasing them at the beginning of the month and doing this during our film club. I will also be having every Tuesday night our Pulpwood Queen online book club meetings, Central Standard Time. And every week I will be assigning guest hosts for our partnership with Breathless Bubbles and Books, which is an award-winning wine in Sonoma, California, that has paired their wines with my books of the month in beautiful gift boxes. And I am so thrilled about that. I can't even stand it. This week, Kevin and Connor Garrett are going to be hosting on the site. It's very, very exciting. So what am I recommending that you all watch tonight? The movie is called Happy New Year. There's another version. So look for the film starring Shah Rukh Khan. I've watched it a couple of times. I think I watched it on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I know it's also, you can rent it on YouTube. There's all kinds of trailers. And on my blog today, I put some links so you can watch some of those. I recommend that you all watch the film and then you come back onto our page. And if you have any questions or you want to discuss it, let's open that conversation. The story is about 6 losers. And it's a story about these men who all come together from all ages, all walks of life, because they want to resolve a horrific thing that happened to Shah Rukh Khan, who plays Charlie, his father. And in order to do this, it's a convoluted tale, but it all works, believe me. They decide that they're going to enter this world dance competition. Now, it's hilarious because they go through all kinds of antics trying to learn how to do routines, and they're competing with, it's like the Olympics of dance. And it looks like to me that it's all set at Atlantis, that beautiful, gorgeous place, you know, in the Bahamas that people go to vacation. It's probably one of the most spectacular productions I've ever seen. It should get you really excited about the new year and the hope and praying that we'll get to travel soon, because this is a beautiful location. But it's a story about these guys and, yes, one girl, who all come together and compete while there's another story going on. There's lots of dancing, there's lots of singing, there's lots of comedy. It's just a wonderful film. And when they came out with it, it just took India and Shah Rukh Khan kingdom by a storm. So for all Americans who haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. Now, next month, we'll be going into our February book club selections. But right now, I have an author who's joined us, and I want you all to say hi to our author from Jefferson, Texas. And since you're on here, tell them a little bit about your book.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, I love your enthusiasm about the Bollywood films. I've watched a few of those, and it's hard not to watch them with a smile on your face every time you watch one.
I laugh out loud, actually.
There's a ton of enthusiasm and energy in every one of those movies. I had been wanting to write a book for over 20 years, and I'm in the insurance business. I've been for 45 years. And as I said in the book, I've never met anybody that told me when I'm growing up, I dreamed of being a salesman. You either fall into it, you inherit it from your folks, or you get recruited into it. And I got recruited into it after college, and a multitude of different construction type jobs and so forth, and engineering. I was an engineer major. Just accidentally fell into it. I love sports and answered a sports-minded individual ad, which hooked me, a blind ad, and I started door to door down the street selling insurance. But the early part of the book is about failure. It talks about the struggles of a dream, and maybe you're not the right fit for the dream, and you start second guessing yourself for the dream, and then you have to do some deep soul searching to, is this really what I should be doing? I'm changing my life, my family's life, everybody's life. Can I really afford to do this to them and for me? And all of a sudden, I decided to put my head down, make it work. And when I come out of the chute, I come out of the chute firing. I ended up leading, made a record the first week, the first month with this company, made a record in sales, continued to do so with my career, and just absolutely had a blast. So the whole book is about everybody's in sales. I don't care what you do in your life.
You're right.
If you're even teaching your kids what to do, you're in sales. That's probably some of the toughest sales. And so this book gives you lessons learned and stories told as to how to handle those a little bit better. I mean, I love using my grandkids, and my kids see that. And I said, hey, listen, I didn't have a book raising you, so this is the second time around. And so hopefully this is an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about how you sell, how you approach sales with your kids and everything else you do in your life. I don't care what it is that you write a book, you read a book. When you go to tell someone about a book, you're in sales. So, and we do it with fun. Echo helped ghostwrite this book with me, convinced me to get off of that dream of 20 years and to step in and do this, and is the best move I ever made. She and I had a blast writing it. It's a funny book. There's tons of stories in it. And I think you'll really enjoy the read and learn something along the way.
It is a great book. I couldn't put it down. And for me, who's worked in retail and being a cosmetologist my whole life, you're selling yourself when you're doing hair and you're selling beauty products. And I've worked for Elizabeth Arden. I've worked in a lot of retail settings, and I always try to educate myself as much as I can on product knowledge and things. But the one thing I know about being a great salesman is that you have to have a passion for what you're selling. Yep. You have to believe in it 100%. And I think that comes true in your book. I think authors that read your book are going to find that time to get out of your comfort zone. You don't know social media, you better learn it. And Doug was so kind to me the other night to call me and give me some tips on Zoom, doing our Zoom International Book Club convention that's coming up, because I've never done this before and I had to learn how to do it. So every night I've been watching Zoom videos and learning, and you're gonna give us some tips, Echo told me, before the event that's gonna help us out. I'm so excited about that because I'm still learning, and I know that it may not be perfect, but our hearts are going to be in it this year. The authors wanted me to do it. I am actually very happy they talked me into doing it because it has kept me so busy and so focused. I forget sometimes that I'm alone, especially when I'm doing all these Zoom calls and I talk to you. I've talked to you more than I don't even know if you lived in Jefferson when I lived there, but I know I've talked to you more now. But I've gotten to know authors a lot better and book club members too. So read Doug's book, Knock Knock. Give them the full title, Doug.
It's right here. It's Knock Knock. And it is lessons learned, stories shared, right along with Super Sales star Doug Thompson. And then Echo Garrett is co-author on the book. But it's what Kathy said is true. This is old habit schools, old methods of schools that all of a sudden had to be changed. Yeah. And it's talking about change. A lot of us don't accept change very well, but matter of fact, who knew that the biggest items I have in my house and my shelf is toilet paper and paper towels?
No kidding.
We go through change. And so this is how to approach change with a positive attitude. I've always looked at the glass half full my entire life, and it's taken a look at change with a glass half full and enjoying that change instead of being fearful of it.
Well, I've always been a positive person, and when Shah Rukh Khan talked about his films, he said, I've done 80, but only like 30 of them were successful. And he said, but I took the parts that nobody wanted. I played, sociopaths and murderers. But the one thing I've learned about his films is watching somebody who is so passionate about what they do. It's so engaging that all of a sudden, I've learned more about bad guys than I ever known in my life, because you get the backstory too. So it's fascinating. I don't think we always need to have everything just black and white. And
take what you said a minute ago. Take the challenges. What I enjoyed in my career and accidentally fell into it was being dared to make the toughest call. No one had a call that no one wanted to make. So rather than being scared of it, I had fun with it.
I have fun with everything. And if somebody tells me I can't do something, Doug, I'm one of those that when years ago, International Paper was a corporate sponsor for my girlfriend weekend. And they have at the Marion County Fair every year a thing called the Woodland Competition. And so all the men from International Paper in the county compete. And I remember walking up to my friend that I knew at the thing, and I said, where do I sign up? And he said, women don't compete in woodland competition. And I said, what? What do you mean? And he goes, well, they don't chop wood. And I go, excuse me? You don't think women chop wood or run a chainsaw? And he goes, well, have you ever run a chainsaw before? And I go, actually, I haven't, but I kind of look at it as a really big piece of hair. I cut hair. And he laughed and he said, well, you got to go through all the safety. So they put the chaps on me and the glasses and everything. And I will tell you, Doug, that we had to do an inch cut down and an inch cut back up on a log, and we were timed. And the minute you pull up the chainsaw, right, they start, and the minute you set it back down and turn it off, they stop. I not only won first place because I got some more women to sign up. I won in the crosscut saw with, at the time, the newspaper editor's wife. I talked her into entering with me. And we beat about 75% of the men, because the men were, when you're using tools, you learn to let the tool work for you. You can't push a chainsaw through. You let the chainsaw feed its way through. You can't run a saw and push. You've got to let it glide. And we got a rhythm going, and we beat everybody. And I don't know if the women are still competing, but in the years that I was there, they always did. But it's something that it's true. We may not have the physical strength or the things, but there's, with a little skills and things, we can do the same things.
Determination is a powerful force.
Well, it was a lot of fun. And I wrote all about it in my first book, because it was a real learning experience for me. So if you're passionate about something, if you're passionate about your writing, especially since you're going to be speaking at our writers conference and author conference, I want authors to know this is an excellent resource for learning how to market yourself. Because most authors that I know, they're a nervous wreck, especially the brand new ones that are coming onto this. And I said, there is nothing to be fearful of but fear itself, just like the story in Spellbound of the father throwing his son into the shallow sea. The biggest fear is the fear, because once you get through it, the sense of accomplishment that you have is so powerful. And the other thing that Shah Rukh Khan has said over and over, and I totally believe in, you work hard at something and you put everything you've got into it, then when you get the rewards from that work, you can take pride in it because you know you earned it. You know, you can have your parents buy you a car, but if you've ever had to earn the money to buy a car, when you get it, I just bought my car for the first car I've ever bought in my life, and I paid it off. And I love that car. And I take really good care of it because I bought it myself, you know? And I just think it's really important that we all learn how to sell the things that we believe in. And it's important. And I think you wrote a great book, and it's a story I hadn't read before, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
and I hope everybody has a fun time reading it. I had a fun time writing.
I know they will. I mean, with Knock Knock, even the cover just cracks me up. So good for Echo Garrett, because Echo, she had already brought that book to the table before I was brought on. She says, I don't know if it'll be a Pulpwood Queen book club selection. I go, what are you talking about? I loved it. I thought it was, I couldn't put it down. I read it in one sitting. I mean, it was just so inspiring. And I cannot thank you enough for helping us with the Zoom meetings. And if we all work together, look at all the good that can come from it. And so why not share your knowledge of sales? We certainly need it. Anybody that I had, you know, I had an agent and a playwright author come to me and say, hey, would you like me to do a workshop on writing? Yes, I would. Would you like me to talk about the landscape of publishing in New York today from a top literary agency? Yes, ma'am. I would like you to do that. If we can, we have the only book club convention in the world that is meeting January 12th through the 14th. And here's the coolest thing ever, Doug. You know, the price went up New Year's Day, and everybody goes, oh, it's $100 higher. But you know, prayers are answered, because a new friend, a new podcaster came to me named Sean Fargedy, who is, he's an IT guy that started a podcast about stories that empower. And he said, hey, I got to thinking, he's featuring me at the end of every one of his podcasts this month, thanks to another podcaster or blogger, Eileen Sanchez. But he said, I would like to give away to those who sign up for Girlfriend Weekend 2 drawings. One for me to do a counseling session with them, a $250 value, one-on-one with them on helping them with write their stories or do whatever they need to do. And he said, I also, because I'm an IT guy, I'll help them develop a website, a 5-page website for $1,000 worth value. I will give it to you. So everybody that signs up, and I already have somebody's in the contest signed up today, will be entered into that drawing to win. You know, it's a value of $1,250. And he gave that to me because he believes in what we're doing, and I believe in what he's doing. His podcasts are featuring all our authors, you know, and the stories behind the stories, stories that empower. And check him out. It's Sean, SEANFARJID, Fargedy, DI. Yeah. And if not, I'll email you later. But he's wonderful. I've been talking to him, and he has a lovely family. And what he's doing is just putting a lot of good out into the world. And if we can all just do that this coming year, everybody just does one thing like that, my goodness, what a wonderful world it will be. So enjoy the film. Happy New Year. I'm going to be every Saturday night this month, I'm going to be sharing a Shah Rukh Khan film. So you're going to get to see a wide variety of stories, but he's a favorite of mine. I've watched some of them over and over, and some of them, I did one at Christmas time. My Name is Khan, which is a story about a Muslim man who comes to the United States and marries a Hindi woman, and they have a wonderful life until 9/11 happens. And what is really sad is that everything changes. And I compared it to It's a Wonderful Life because, we kind of get forged by fire. And so I just hope that everybody watches these films and they're inspired. I hope they'll be enlightened about how people we think are so different from us and a little scary. They're just like us. They just have different customs and clothing. And then also, it's highly entertaining. I mean, I think the very first Bollywood film I watched was a takeoff on Pride and Prejudice called Bride and Prejudice. Weddings are really big in India. And so it's on my number one thing on my bucket list. And I want to go to an Indian wedding because they last sometimes 5 days. So if, I've got some Indian friends, but I don't know any of them getting married. But one day, that's what I want to do. So join me, read the books, join Douglas and I, and all the Pulpwood Queen Reading Nation. Every Saturday night, 6:30, I'm here giving some kind of pre-talk on books and stories. And I just thank you for joining us tonight. And it will be downloaded and recorded so that you can go to the Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel, hit subscribe, it's free. And if you hit that little icon bell, you'll get updates, notifications on when it's coming. But all the events that are happening during our Girlfriend Weekend will be going onto that page, but only those that sign up for our weekend will be able to see them for a while. I won't share them to the public for some time. So you want to sign up for the weekend if you want to hear over 50 authors like that and get all these wonderful tips and advice and inspirational stories. So any last words from you tonight, Doug?
No, I thank you for inviting me on tonight, and I look forward to the movie and to the next steps that we go with this slumber party we've got coming up in 2 weeks.
Well, we're telling everybody to wear your pajamas because that's all. I got a new jacket from Jefferson, so I wore it tonight because it's all sparkly for New Year's from Made in the Shade. My friend Angie sent it to me. So, but we're going to be in our pajamas and we're going to be having our tiaras on. You can wear a gimme cap if you like. But thank you for joining me. We'll see you Tuesday night at the Pulpwood Queen Online Book Club meeting, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. I will be posting the Zoom link on the International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys Book Club reading page. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, just email me at thepulpwoodqueen@gmail.com. Good night. Happy Saturday. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye, Doug.
Bye-bye.